Hey, Amanda. Amandy. I'm sorry, I pronounced your name wrong. Amandy. That's me, a big oof. Are you guys able to hear me okay in the if you can let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay, I'd appreciate it. I just got this thing all set up here. Okay, great, thanks. YouTube keeps changing the way they do things, so I set this thing up pretty quick, and I just wanted to see if it was actually working. And the camera on my laptop's really, really crummy, so I broke out this USB camera, and that has a much better picture. Of course, I'm seeing the live picture right here locally, which looks pretty good. By the time it's compressed and going down the stream, it might look pretty crummy. I don't know. Hey, Dave, good to see you. So Dave's asking what I'm doing here. So mostly I just wanted to test this and see if it was working. And Dave will understand because he does a live YouTube CNC weekly show. And Dave, I'm sure you've probably got this down packed now. But every time I seem to go into this to try doing this type of thing, it looks like YouTube changes things every time. But this time around, it was actually pretty easy to set up. I remember in the past being a little bit of a pain to set up. So if anyone's interested, while I've got your attention, I've been developing, well, I guess you'd have to be in the model trains to really have an appreciation for this. But I've got probably easier to just unplug this. So in model trains, we have what might be referred to as switch tracks. We commonly refer to them as turnouts. And turnouts, as you might imagine, or switch tracks is for switching track to, so you can get the train to go in, onto different tracks. Well, there's a number of commercial products out there that you can do this with. But in the last few years, especially, I've seen a lot of people getting very interested in using cheap hobby servos to do this. And one of the common methods is to actually mount the motor from the bottom. And then there's an actuating arm, as you can see here, and that will actually go up under the track and switch the track back and forth. And like I said, there's some commercial products out there that work really, really well. They're just a little expensive, especially if you're getting into more than 5, 10, 15, 20. I mean, there's some guys that have got 100 plus on their layout. Of course, it's a pretty good size layout. So I've seen a lot of people using servos to do this. Just there isn't a lot of products out there yet that control servos for this application. There's a company called Tam Valley. They make actually a pretty good product. It's a little bit pricey. I bought one just to play with it, and it took me weeks to get it. I think they build them like on the fly. I don't think they actually keep them in stock. So that was one downside. The other thing is that when I got it from them, it was kind of like a bag of parts. And when I started my company almost 20 years ago, the whole idea behind it was producing products that you can pull out of the box and basically start using. So that's kind of my goal when it comes to any product that I develop. But this particular one, so I don't know, hopefully you guys can see this. So you can see the little blue servo. And then this is a 3D printed bracket, this white bracket here. So that bracket not only holds the servo, but also has a little fulcrum point here that's part of the design for this arm. And of course, this arm would protrude up and then it would be cut off level with the track so it's not sticking out. And then on the bottom is a product that I actually have just released, and it's this little switchboard. It's kind of hard to see with the light, but there's 2 micro switches. And the idea is when that servo actuates to one side or the other, it will actuate one of those switches. And the important part behind that is when you're running your power through your track, when you get to the switch, you actually want to do what's called power routing to prevent any kind of shorting, or you can actually cause polarity changes if you're not careful. So these switches are actually used to do that, to control that routing of power, depending on if the track is thrown or if it's straight. So that's what these little switches on this board is for. And essentially, this is meant to be a product that somebody can purchase and use all as a a working unit. They don't have to piece anything together. They get everything. Well, I'm taking it one step further, and what I'd like to do is the other side of this equation is having a decent, reliable way of controlling these servos. And if you're familiar with servos, they run on PWM, or pulse width modulation. So you can't just simply give it a DC voltage, and then change the polarity or whatever to get it to swing one way or the other. You actually have to control it with PWM. There's a lot of different ways of doing that. One of the most common ways is just with a basic microprocessor. And I don't have it here somewhere, I had been writing code in Python to do this with a Raspberry Pi Zero, because I had kind of envisioned being able to deploy these things around and be able to control a whole bunch. Let me see if I can find that thing real quick. Here it is. So the Raspberry Pi Zero, I developed my own little board. This is essentially a somewhat of a clone of the board that Adafruit produces. It's got a PCA 9685 PWM IC on it. It will control 16 channels of PWM. But my thing is that they designed their version to be more for a hobbyist. You just kind of cobble together. I wanted this to be more purpose-built. So I've got a 3-pin header on there that the servos will plug directly into. Also, you cannot power all those servos off of the 5-volt rail off of this Pi, because one, it won't produce enough current or supply enough current. And the other thing too is that the 5-volt regulator that comes off of this thing is a little flaky. And I found that it can cause problems. So there's a separate power jack to provide 5 volts. And so that gives plenty of power. And of course, as long as you give it about an amp or more, it's plenty of current to run all 16. So anyways, that was the original plan. What I ran into was, when you're developing directly in the Python environment and you want to control these pins through Python, pretty simple, pretty easy. You have direct access to these pins. Where I started running into problems was I'm running Apache server on this thing, so I could host a website that you can now control the servos through a website. So you put this thing on your network, you go to the IP of this Pi, and you get hosted a page that you can control everything through. The problem with that is that the Wheezy or whatever flavor of Pi, and Amanda, if I know you'll understand this because I know you're doing a lot of stuff with the Pi and everything. The direct access these pins through that web server is an absolute nightmare. So I jerked around with this for a good 6 months, and I didn't really get anywhere other than my Python code running internally on this. I could log into this thing, I could SSH into this, and I could control my servos and do all I wanted. As soon as I tried to do the web function, just didn't work. So a couple days ago, or I should say about a week ago, I came across something called the ESP32. See if I can hold this thing up. So the ESP32 is this little guy here. This thing's pretty incredible. It's an Arduino, but it also has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built into it. And it has more I/O than a standard Arduino does. So within 2 nights here in the hotel, and I'm actually here in Chicago right now for work with Motorola. In 2 nights, I've managed to write enough code, along with some code that I found too. I found some blocks of code for the web server stuff. The code that I've written, so far I have it controlling up to 10 servos. I have it actually saving some of the, I'm plugging some of this stuff in. I have it saving settings and doing all kinds of neat stuff. But real quick here, I will connect to my, I've got a little Wi-Fi network in here. Let me see if I can turn the camera. So I got a little Wi-Fi access point right there. And got those, not only is the ESP32 connecting automatically, but of course my phone will connect as well. And once I'm connected, which I'll be connected here in just a second. Let's see here. Hey, look at that, I'm connected. Okay. If I go to the web server IP, you can see, it's hard to see, but it's serving up a very basic website, but it is serving up a website that I can control all the servos through. And then at the bottom, it's hard to see, but I've started with there's like a settings and calibration kind of table there that allows me to set the endpoints of the servo and the center point and all that. And then eventually there's going to be basically 16 of those. So you can control, not only control all of them, but then also have individual endpoints for each servo, because obviously each servo is not quite the same. So, as far as your swing one way or the other, so you gotta set those endpoints. So that's all. But I am controlling them, and I have the settings are being saved to EEPROM. So that means a power reset does not lose all my settings. I can fire the thing back up. It will automatically reconnect, and all my settings are there for the endpoints and everything. So anyways, let's see here. I know I had about 4 people watching at one point, that's awesome. I didn't know if anybody would actually click and check in on me here. So thanks for everybody for at least checking in on me and stopping in to say hi and hanging out with me. I got at least 2 of you still left, so thanks. Let's see, Silent Sir Bob, you said you bought 5 of these and you lost motivation. Yeah, I gotta be honest. I'm horrible at writing code, and when I start writing code for something, if it doesn't work, at least partially work, when I get started, I lose my motivation really quick, because I get really, really frustrated, because I'm not a software guy. I've never been a good firmware guy. I'm a hardware guy. That's why I can build this stuff, and it doesn't bother me at all. It's writing the code to make it work. So that's the thing that's frustrating these days, is that I can build all the hardware. It's being able to write the code to make the hardware do what you want to do. Like, I've got a million ideas in the back of my head of things that I want to do. This right here is one project, and eventually I want this to be integrated into what's called LCC, or the layout command control. So that's, I've got some lofty plans for this. I've got, a lot of projects like that. So, I can build the hardware. It's just writing the firmware, because of the magics in the firmware these days, especially when you're talking about really, really complicated things like web servers and just connectivity in general. It was just a standalone thing. But these days you can't get away with that. And of course, everyone wants to connect their phone to it or whatever, So, oh, yeah, Amanda, thanks for the comment about the web app and the server or the servo control. This started out as a project for myself, for my own, because I kind of saw it as something. But then, of course, being that I've had my company for so many years, anytime I develop something like this, I immediately start thinking about, how can I turn this into a product? How can I turn this into something that I think other people would want to, have and use? Would it be useful to them? So, Dave, I don't know if you're still around. I don't know if you're one of the people that dropped off, but with Dave has a CNC company, and I think he started off by building a CNC for himself, and when he realized that so many other people would want to build one, it just ballooned into a company for him. And that's how I started my company almost 20 years ago, in my bedroom as a kid in high school. I was building data cables for packet radio for amateur radio users, and I was building them for myself, and I was seeing all these people in the forums. They were having such a hard time getting the cables made to hook all the stuff together, you know. And I was like, well, hell, I can do this because I do it for myself. So I started making custom cables for people, and that's how I actually started my business in my senior year of high school. Was making cables for amateur radio operators that either one couldn't figure it out, two were too lazy, or three they had so much money, and you know, and this isn't a knock on people with money, because I mean, people with money is how people like me with a business, you know, we make money, you know. But there's a lot of people out there in these hobbies that they have money and they don't want to mess with the nitty gritty crap. They want to pay somebody to get it done right, to get it done, you know, they just want to be able to open it up and make it work, or just use it. And that's how my company was started on the side with, and that's how my company's always been, is I will provide you a product that will take the headache out of whatever X thing you're trying to do. So that's ultimately what it comes down to. Well, thanks. Thanks. Well, Amanda, I see you're still there, and I'm not sure who else is here, but thanks guys for watching, and I might try to do some more of these. This is fun. I like this. I love making videos, but these days with my daughter and my full-time job and everything, it's really tough to record all the footage and then edit it all together. And then if I have to do voiceovers or graphics or anything like that, it's taken, and that's essentially why I haven't been posting on my other channel, which is my woodworking channel. I haven't posted on there in a long time, just because it takes so much effort to put together a decent, you know, they always say it doesn't matter what your subject is, if you make a really good video, you know, if it attracts people's attention, that's you know, really where the success is. And it's true. I think you can make a video about drinking water, and if you can make it really entertaining, that's probably you know, that's the key to it. So anyways, okay, thanks again everybody for dropping in and saying hi and giving me some feedback, and let me run my mouth for a little bit just to see if this to see if this thing works. Okay, so all right, thanks everybody. Take care.